posted April 12, 2018, 13 hours 22 minutes and 18 seconds. An Instagram comment made by Australian rugby player Israel Folau could destroy people, according to Archdeacon Peter McLeod Miller from St Matthew's Anglican Church in Albury. In a comment on the social media platform on April 4, fullback Folau, who is a devout Christian, said gay men would go to hell unless they repent their sins. Rugby Australia implemented no disciplinary action, but Chief Executive Raylene Castle said Folau was a strong role model who should express his beliefs respectfully and in line with the organisation's social media policy. But Albury-based Father McLeod Miller said the comments should not be excused on the basis of religious freedom. It becomes an engine for refugees within our own community. To allow this sort of thing to happen in the name of freedom is grossly irresponsible and so corrupt, he said. Love is love, but hatred is hatred. If you put a hat and collar on it, it doesn't make it less insidious and doesn't give it greater credentials. Video. Aru responds to Israel Folau comments. ABC News. Willfully damaging LGBT people. Father McLeod Miller said religion had moved on from the days when people were condemned to the fiery pits of hell. Gay people were sent to hell in the old days. So were unmarried mothers and people who were divorced, a great range of people. It's nonsense, of course. But it's not just nonsense, it's hate speech. That sort of speech diminishes someone else, and potentially destroys them, and has no place at all within any discussion about religious freedom. Ryan Storr, who lectures in sport development at the University of Western Sydney, said Folau's comments also revealed his position of privilege. Folau is one of the most high-profile rugby players in Australia. People say those types of things online all the time, but the reason that's important in the context of Israel Folau is that he has a platform, he has lots of followers, he gets lots of media attention, and it travels, Mr. Storr said. Mr. Storr, who is the co-founder of advocacy organisation Proud to Play, said sporting clubs were dealing with issues like racism and ableism much better, but homophobia was yet to be properly dealt with. He said the disciplinary action imposed on Folau was too weak, and clubs should implement stronger action against prejudice and microaggression. Homophobia still rife in sport. Australian respondents to the Out on the Fields report, the first and largest study of homophobia in sport, overwhelmingly expressed concern about the welfare of LGBT people in sport. 80% of participants involved in sport in Australia said they felt homosexual players were not accepted within the sporting community. Mr. Storr said homophobia had tangible implications for young people and sporting communities, especially in regional areas. Often in sport, AFL clubs, football and netball clubs are the heart of communities. Sport is a platform to express traditional forms of masculinity and femininity, he said. Ultimately it sends the message that they can make those comments and it's still okay to do. It can really have a significant impact on detrimental health and mental health outcomes. Don Rose, president of the Sydney Convicts Club, said the impact of Folau's comments would likely be damaging on regional rugby players. Comments that suggest homosexual people aren't welcome in our game, or there's something wrong with being gay, by someone with such a high profile within our sport, to my mind would increase the likelihood of the player staying in the closet, or sends that young player out of the game because they think it's an environment that doesn't welcome them, Mr. Rose said. With about 20 years' experience playing rugby, Mr. Rose said it was heartening to see action against homophobia in sport progress in leaps and bounds. It's really positive to see both Rugby Australia and the Waratahs are having an open and frank conversation with Israel about his responsibility, about the platform he has, and how his comments can be perceived and inevitably how they affect people across the full breadth of our community in our game, he said. Comments also harmful to religious communities. While Father McLeod Miller said religion had historically been on the wrong side of history, he said extreme views damaged the way contemporary faith was perceived by the wider community. I have experiences where people are frightened of faith communities because of the damage that's done. They look at me as someone who could potentially damage them more, he said. He said the community at St. Matthew's Anglican Church in Albury was part of a remedy, but the onus also fell to those in positions of power. The government has an opportunity to do something about this, in terms of the prerogatives of religious organizations and their radical views, Father MacLeod Miller said. If ever there was a warning about the danger of religious control that's dressed up as freedom, it's now. Topics: sexual health, sexuality, community and society, sport, rugby union, LGBT, Albury 2640.